Just, there's a level of trust I cannot get past.
Well, Drea told me to get you laughing before we started. So, welcome to the first edition of what we're going to call DarkLight Stories. And I guess we'll start off by letting Karen explain just a little bit about the whole concept about dark light and the dark and the light. And she talks better on that subject. So let's just roll right into that.
I talk better on that subject, huh? Okay, so well, for me, it kind of boils down to this, issue of oneness versus and unity versus duality, which is the nature of humans. So I kind of think, for me, of darkness as like a shadow. It's a shadow side of myself. I don't necessarily think that things that feel dark are always something from the outside that's attacking me.
Right.
I mean, I've certainly had experiences that were a little scary and unsettling, and I've certainly had entities, before that I've had clearings, but I also recognize that it's typically from me inviting something.
And it can even be subconsciously an invitation. I know I had something kind of following me around, and it wasn't a conscious invitation, but long story short, there was just enough going on in my life where it was like I energetically invited it without even realizing it.
Yeah.
So the subject of today's video is one of my favorite subjects. That's dreams. And what's funny is a few people have asked us to do this, and yesterday we're just gonna drop the bomb right here, because I've been able to pretty much control my dreams since about the age of 5-6 years old. But what happened to us collectively yesterday, there's no explanation for it other than 2020. So normally what will happen is I'll take a nap in my recliner, especially after the tooth thing. I kind of need to be upright to sleep a little bit better. So I take a nap in my recliner in the loft, and Karen will go into the bedroom and try to fall asleep watching a Netflix show. So I thought she was just going to go take a nap. I didn't realize she was going to watch anything on her laptop. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about the show you were watching that I didn't know about?
Well, in the show I was watching, it was about a scientist who captured people. It sounds like a horror show, and it is kind of horrifying, but the underlying theme is that he's attempting to understand the near-death experience, and to do that, he needs to have these people going through experiences of dying and recording the experience. And so in that dream, there was
in the show.
I'm sorry, yeah, in the show. Dream show at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, right?
In that show, there was a door. And it kept standing out to me in the show. There were actually two doors, one where he would come down and one where these people were being held. And the sound of the door there was something with the sound of that door that I thought, oh, that's an interesting thing that they've put that in there repetitively so that I'm noticing this door.
Right.
And the main girl actually escaped. And I won't tell the whole story of the show, but there were definitely things within that show that when he started telling me about the dream, and there was a period where I heard him, he does this frequently when he's traveling and dreaming, he will call out or verbalize in his sleep, and most of the time I try not to bother him, and I heard him calling Fluffy. And go ahead.
So I wake up, I don't know she's watching the show. I wake up and she takes the headphones off. And I start telling her, because it was like a 2-hour nightmare. It was like the entire time. Or at least it felt like that. But, so we start talking about what I was seeing and what I was feeling and what was happening in the nightmare. And she just starts looking at me like, I'm like, what? She's like, first she asked me if there was water. I said no. But then I told her about the door and how and the door slammed behind me and I was yelling for Fluffy. And long story short, like Abraham Hicks likes to say, stay tuned in, tapped on. Apparently, I've become my own Wi-Fi hotspot because what I was having this dream about was going on in her show at the same time. When the other characters in the show were looking for this woman and they were yelling out for her name, I was having this door that was in my dream that kept slamming on me. It was in a part in my house where there was not a door. So it was weird for there to be this door there, and they kept slamming on me. And at the same time, the people in her show were yelling out for looking for this woman. I was yelling out looking for Fluffy. So I have no explanation for that other than we had an interesting night. That has never happened to me before. I've had a lot of things happen to me before, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But that was, I'd love to know if anybody else has ever had anything happen like that before. And it's kind of worrisome a little bit in the sense that, how did I get in there? I mean, I'm joking about it being Wi-Fi, but I mean, the phone was next to me. I mean, we've all had the experience of talking to somebody and then getting an ad for it, you know, on YouTube or on Facebook or whatnot. So we know the phones are doing weird things. I don't have any explanation other than maybe I'm metal toxic.
Metal toxic.
Right? Maybe I got too many heavy metals and I've turned into an antenna.
Well,
I don't know, but that was the craziest thing that I can recall. That's certainly the only craziest thing that's happened is in terms of with other people. Now, there's Karen was asking me earlier about if it was more like the more people woke up to their gifts, that maybe their dreams intensified and whatnot. And I think obviously for some people that's true, but I think for some people like myself, like I said, about age 5, age 6, I learned I could go to bed and basically meditate on something. I didn't know I was meditating, but I would just go to bed completely focused on something, a question I would have, an answer that I would want, and it would immediately present in a dream to the point where, I mean, I used it like a television. Like I would just tune myself to be like, I want to know this, and I would click the button up here or wherever, and I would dream about it. I never even questioned it. And that lasted throughout all my years until the most stressful time of my life, where it was like I had 3 kids at the same time, and 2 of them were autistic and disabled. So it was a lot of stress, and so that kind of shut those type of dreams off in terms of having the ability to have answers. But Karen has her own experience with getting things a little bit too real, and then shutting things down.
yeah, well, you were automatically just practicing what people have called lucid dreaming, where you go to bed, you think about it, and you are kind of aware of the dream that you're having and you're participating in it, correct?
Right. And a lot of times I'm not aware of that terminology because a lot of these things I've just always been able to do. So I don't read about this stuff. I don't research it. People ask me, oh, so you're doing this? I say, okay, if that's what it's called, I don't know.
Right. Well, like my design is such that I have 1,000,001 questions. So I don't have the same, I shouldn't say I don't have the same gifts. I don't have the awareness of the power I hold in the gifts that I have. That's what I wasn't born. No, I wouldn't say I was not born knowing it. I was born knowing it, but it was.
I think the difference, and you can correct me on camera if I'm wrong.
I will.
But she will. I think the difference is that you have a consistent number of questions about the outside world, and you're trying to find out all these outside things.
Yes.
And for me, from an early age, all I was interested in was knowing myself. So I focused all those questions on myself. So I think that's why it was a smaller space I was looking at.
Yes.
So I wasn't searching out answers for anybody else or trying to figure anything else out for anybody else. So I made it easier on myself in that way. So I don't think it's a matter of me being ahead or behind or anything like that. I think we just had different goals.
Yeah, and I think it's also different, families we choose to be born in, different life experiences for whatever reason, because I take this all the way back to when I was a child, and I would wake up in a room in my grandmother's house, and I can still see the shade of lilac that this room was, and there was a closet that was always a little bit open. And when I would wake up, I felt paralyzed in a way, like I really couldn't move very well, and there was this light coming out of the closet that was so bright that I couldn't open my eyes and look directly at it, but I wanted to go into this light. I wanted to go there. And my grandmother was somewhat psychic, but she, being of the Christian religion and the family she had been in, she felt like those gifts were a negative. And her psychic abilities were more about sometimes people dying or somebody getting sick, or for her, it was bad things happening. And so when I told her about this light, she immediately told me, we don't talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. So I was immediately shut down. So my questions formed very early about what that was, what the dreams I were having. I said a lot of flying dreams. And I just didn't have any resources or anything around me to help me understand that with a child's mind.
Right. Now,
so that colored my progression.
Now, tell the story about the dirt, because that's when you really shut it down.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
don't listen to this story in the dark by yourself. Probably turn the light on.
It's not that bad. Okay, maybe at the time it was that bad.
The punchline's pretty heavy, okay?
So, well, I now recognize that this external messaging shut me down, who I was. So I focused outward, and I spent my teens and 20s and most of my 30s looking at the outside world and wanting to ask every question that could possibly be answered, and most of them were questions that were really no answers to. And so somewhere in my new age experiment, I learned about lucid dreaming, and I started doing that, and I started seeing a psychic, and she told me that I was very psychic and I would learn about my gifts later in life. So I was like, well, I don't want to wait till later, so I'm just going to start doing this lucid dreaming stuff now. I probably should have had a little more instruction in how to go about doing it, but I had begun to have dreams where predictive dreams, and it was just simple things like I might dream about a gourd, and the next day a friend would show up with a gift, and the gift was made from a gourd. Or I might dream of a weather event in a friend's town, and then the next day in the newspaper there'd be a weather event in that town. So it was little things like that, but nothing real personal, nothing about me so much. And it was at a time where it's a long story, and I won't go into the whole story, and it sounds weird, but there really was a reason all this ended up like this. But I was in a 2-bedroom apartment or condo, and my friend and her young daughter lived there with me, and we all shared my bedroom, a king-size bed and a small bed. And we had these tables lined up against the wall with our artwork, and we didn't have frames, so we just had them propped against the wall. And I would frequently journal my dreams, and my friend would read my journal. We were very close, almost like twins or sisters, not just roommates. And so this one night, I wake up the next morning and she's not in the room, and I walk out and she's out there with her boyfriend, and they look at me and they start laughing, and they're like, "What's that on your face?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What's on my face?" And they're like, "Were you playing in the dirt?" I'm like, "No." And so apparently I did. I had this area here that looked like I had been smudged, and under here looked like I had been smudged. And so I had written about my dream. And so when I saw it, I'm like, what the heck? So I went and got my journal, took it out for her to read, and what I had written is that in my dream, what's the name of that crater in Arizona? I don't know. The meteor. There's a crater from the meteor. Everybody knows it. Just the Arizona meteor crater. I don't remember. It might be crater something. Anyway, it was like that. It was this big circle, like something had made a big indentation in the earth. And there were all these people with motorcycles. And it was people from childhood memories, from middle school, people I had not been in contact with, people I did know. But all these motorcycles were being at the same time kind of ridden down this slope. And when we got down to the bottom, the dust had just been kicked up, could barely breathe. We get to the bottom, and then all of a sudden I see this thing, and it kind of reminded me of Stonehenge, but in crystal, and then there was a slab on top of it. And these people that I had ridden down there with picked me up and put me on top of this slab. And there was some kind of ceremony that was going to take place. I don't know what the ceremony was, but I woke up and I still don't know how the dirt got on my nose, but I was in a dust cloud in my dream. And so when we went into the bedroom later that day, we were going to clean. And my roommate moved one of the pictures, and she said, well, that's weird. And around each one of the art pictures that we had done ourselves, not other things, but any piece of art that we had done ourselves, there was like this outline of a smudge that looked like dust had blown through there. And so that was pretty scary for me. I didn't have any clue what I was opening or what they were doing to me on that slab. But I was like, I don't know who you all are, but stop it now. You're not invited. Go away. And so for me, I shut down what I think were my gifts out of fear, because I had been conditioned to believe that dark is always a bad thing and light is always a good thing.
Right. Well, I know for me, like I said, at an early age I was able to control things. But as I've gotten older, the main thing for me is I've built myself 3 or 4 worlds. Almost like if you watch the movie Inception, it's similar to that, where I have these entire settings where everything takes place. And the thing of it is that each different location will represent. I dream of disaster all the time. It's just constant. It's a constant thing. But there's different settings, and one of the biggest things that I've dreamt about is this flood, and what happened in this dream, and it was as real as could be. I'm in this white van, and I'm driving down this road, and my parents are driving behind me. And there's water that's supposed to be there, like a river, to the left, and there's water that's supposed to be there to the right. And the road is starting to get flooded. There's water rushing in from everywhere. But there's water coming in that's going to flood the road. But I know on the other side of that there's dry land, because I'm just in my dream. I know. So I'm driving in the van, and the dogs are with me, and my family is behind me, and I can't remember who's in the front seat with me. I think it was my daughter, and whoever it was said, "Turn back, stop." And I'm like, "No, I can make it. I can make it." Well, I don't make it. I drive where the road is supposed to be, and just boom, the van just sinks, and it's completely, the dream ends, but we don't make it. We'll put it that way. The thing, now that happened 2008, about. The thing for that is that I was living in Florida at that time, and now I live in Maryland, in the exact location of that dream. This house, that's the road, the river is right there. It's how it's the exact location. And I have a giant white van. Right. So, and what's interesting is, I think this was last year, maybe last spring, on occasion, if we have a heavy duty storm, that road will flood. And I was coming down with the dogs to take them to the river, and because it's down a hill, and I was coming down, and I saw the road had flooded, and there was another car that had gotten stuck, and then a truck that had stopped to help them. And I stopped and I asked, I said, did they make it through? Because they were kind of on the other side of where the road was flooded. And they said, no, they got stuck. I had to pull them out. And so it just reminded me of that dream. I said, yeah, I'm not going to take the chance. And I turned around and I did make it to the river. There's a long way that you can go around and go down another big country road. It took me about 15 minutes to get 2,000 yards. But the point is that I have these locations that I build in my dreams, and then one by one they're starting to come into my reality. So to be honest, that's a little bit concerning for me now. Now, do I think that, do I think that that's exactly what's going to happen? No, at this point, because after having the dream, if there was a flood and I'm driving down the road in the white van, I'm pretty sure I'm like, yeah, no, we're good. We're going to go a different way.
Well, it makes me wonder whether it could be somewhat predictive in just knowing that you're on the right trajectory in life versus always being a message of
right.
tangible thing that's going to happen.
That's exactly where I end up going with it, is I start thinking, okay, this is just going to tell me I'm in the right space in the right time. And I actually use that technique on purpose in a day-to-day basis. Sometimes I will just have a dream where it seems like it's a bunch of random events, 6, 7 events, but if I can remember the entire dream really well, those usually are dreams that the next day those events will start. I'll flick that one off, and then that one happened, and then they'll happen over the course of the day, and there'll be small things. Maybe I see somebody at the river, or I see a particular car. That happens to me a lot, and I just kind of take that as like, okay, you're in the right place at the right time, right? This is where you're supposed to be. But on the flip side to that, I know a lot of my dreams this year has been involved with a lot of water, a lot of disaster. I have one particular place that just keeps recurring. It actually appears to be almost in China. There's like a warehouse and there's a big building, and everybody's inside. And everything I've been dreaming the last 3-4 months is dingy and dirty and in disrepair, and people living in squalor, basically. And I don't know if that's predictive or just a process, a product of what's going on in the world. But I'm paying attention to a lot of these little locations. And another thing that happened to me was early on in my life. I had a dream where I don't know what they call them. There's a highway or road, and then they build those little walkways.
Like an over?
Yeah, like you walk over it, but it's like it's metal.
So a footbridge.
It's like a footbridge, but it's encased in like a metal fence, so nobody can fall out. I would continually have this recurring dream that I was stuck on this bridge. And long story short, when I went to basic training in Texas, at the end of our training, we have like this parade where we show off our marching and all of that. Well, I'm not really good at keeping in step, so they didn't let me march. So what they did, there was like 3 of us. They were like, no, you guys come here. We got something else for you to do, okay? Because what it was there was like this, like a little stadium, like a high school football stadium would be, where you have bleachers, and the military guys would just like show off their marching and all of that, and you had to cross a highway to get there. Well, what would happen is you'd walk up to this highway, and all the other guys just cross the highway, and what they had me and the other 2 guys do was go up on this footbridge that was above this highway, and as soon as I turned the corner, I looked at it, I'm like, son of a bitch. Oh my, well, at least now this tells me what I've been dreaming out since I was like 5 years old, and they stuck us up there with signs that direct the traffic. So yeah, that's a true story. So usually what will happen is I'll dream about a location, and eventually it's going to come, And I'll be honest, that's kind of got me a little bit worried and concerned about now, because all I'm dreaming about is disasters in these different locations. And, it's definitely something where I'm paying attention to. And I'm kind of hoping that it's not just my head being affected by the world events and everything, but usually that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. They feel like eventually I'm gonna be in a location going, well, this is what I dreamt.
Right.
You know.
Well,
David Palmer has a Sprite. I got my coffee.
the thing that made me think about is frequency. You know, you mentioned David Palmer, and you guys are always tuned into the same frequency.
That's another video.
Oh my God.
That's
a whole other video.
That'll take over.
This one.
I don't have enough memory on the camera for that one. That is another video.
But,
maybe they'll allow us to post that one to the Leo King group.
Maybe.
You
never know.
You never know. That's a third video. That story is another video.
That's another video.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking about frequency, we've had the one experience where we were in the same dream looking for each other.
Yeah, you remember more about that.
Well, it was one of the water dreams where, when you first started talking about the water dreams, it was before all of this stuff was coming out of China.
Right.
And remember, I don't remember when we heard about it, but there's some dam in China that they had, remember they had some concerns about?
Yeah.
So when I heard about that, I was thinking, oh, maybe that is related to this dream. So I don't know if that's what prompted me to start thinking about it, and that's why I had this dream. But one night when he was having the dream about that location, I was also having a dream. But my dream was about a flood. I mean, the water had literally was going to wipe out a lot of people. And I was looking for him in this dingy, dark warehouse.
Right.
Where things were in squalor. And he was also having
having the same dream, looking for her.
So I don't really know if that was just, but it feels to me like there's a frequency. And when you go on social media and you hear people talking about what they're dreaming and like all these empath groups and dream groups, there seems to be different frequencies that people are tapping into. Like you do, you dream of natural disasters. I dream of buildings, and deja vus of buildings and buildings and buildings.
And that's also something that I've learned to do once, because Karen moved in about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And after we had been sleeping in the same bed long enough, I realized that every once in a while, I would go to bed asking the questions, and she'd get the dreams. I would get nothing, and she'd wake up and she'd be like, I got no sleep. I dreamt about this. I'm like, oh, cool. That's exactly what I wanted to know. She's like, that helps me a lot. So I learned to listen to what her dreams were. If I got nothing, she gets it. So something about that frequency entanglement. It was something else you had just said. I had it in my head to say, and then I've totally lost it. So that's a shame. It was about the different locations, but I can't remember what it was. No.
The natural disasters and different locations.
Yeah, no.
I dream about houses and
you dream about houses. One of the first things I started when we first started sleeping in the same room, I remember I had this dream, and you're going to remember this, but I forget what location you were telling me it was. But it was. I immediately had this huge dream where I was going in through like all this scaffolding, and like it was huge, a bunch of huge metal scaffolding that people could actually stand on and were partying on. And I was trying to get into this old house, and I was trying to look for you, and there were like motorcycles and people having a party and everything. And you told me, oh yeah. So what was
my
that?
dream? I had a dream. Frequently, more so before. Now my dreams are in multiple different buildings, but for a very long time, I dreamed about my grandmother's house. But it was her house, but there was just unlimited rooms that you would go in that would open up into these amazing rooms. So I always thought maybe I just wanted to be an interior designer or something. I didn't know. So this dream that I had that reminded me of what he was telling me was I was at my grandmother's house. I was on the porch, and all of a sudden, all of these cars and motorcycles were coming in, and there was this scaffolding that it was like a chain link fence, but it was a weird scaffolding of a chain link fence, and people were climbing up on it to see this music concert.
There was music, right? There was that was the other part, right? There was music, yeah.
The weird thing is that at the time, I didn't really know how much music meant to you.
Right.
So now it's even kind of adding a whole other level of wait. You were looking for me. I'm at my grandmother's house.
Right.
Those are usually my dreams. But interestingly enough, 2 of the people who came in on motorcycles were in my dream that I just told you about.
Right.
With the motorcycles.
Right, with the motorcycles.
And so it just, it seems like there's some frequency crossover.
Right, and that's something for everybody who's watching. Pay attention to that if you haven't, if there's somebody that you sleep in the same bed with, because it's not always your stuff that you're going to get.
Well,
and we've definitely have learned that.
Well, that's why from a human design perspective, there is a very strong recommendation that people do not always sleep in the same space. Have at least 6 feet, which is your aura spreads out. It's not a social distancing thing. It's just there's a 6 foot.
The video just got banned. Just from that one comment, the video got banned. The account is suspended.
A reason to social distance is that you do not want to stay consistently hooked into the other person's energy, because there are hooks that pull us in.
Yeah, no,
and
that's
so
true.
there's a crossover sometimes.
Well, that's my compromise. That's why I sleep in a recliner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work for you yesterday.
Didn't work for me. No, it did work just fine for you. Did you even sleep yesterday?
No, I couldn't fall asleep.
No, you didn't fall asleep. So I did the whole sleep for you and for me, because that was absolutely crazy.
But it would be interesting for people to comment about, if you have specific dreams like we're talking about, where he's dreaming of natural disasters and nature. I'm dreaming of buildings and houses and very unique, weird, surreal things that I have never really seen in real life. But I imagine somewhere they're in reality.
Yeah, and I would also, talk with your people that that you're close with, your family, your friends, or people that you intermesh your energy with, so to speak, because there's a lot of crossover. That's something we've definitely figured out. It's not always your stuff, and if you've got, a lot of the videos I make are about finding answers for yourself. And you never know, the person you're in bed with might be getting some of your answers if you're not getting them for yourself. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So I'm happy. You happy? This was good. We've been trying to get into these chairs and do a video for too long. A lot longer than we're going to admit here today. So, all right. So what we're gonna probably try to do at least 2 of these a week. Karen does not like it when I promise. She doesn't like it when I promise videos, because I do my hockey videos and I make promises and then I come through on the promises, and it takes a lot of time. It does. So I'm going to promise that my videos, the ones where I'm by myself, I'm trying to get to where I can film those 3 or 4 at a time and then have almost a week's worth ready to go. That's not going to happen today because we did this. Tomorrow, tomorrow there's a surprise video that's coming that she doesn't even know about. So that's going to be fun. And then hopefully later on in the week I'll be back to doing the regular videos. Like I said, we're going to try to do these 2 to 7 times a week, depending on, I know she's giving me a look right now.
Do I do that?
That's why I say half the things I say. Half the things I say, I don't mean I just say them to get a good look out of her.
Well, you get a few looks a day.
Oh yeah, if you wouldn't give me the great looks, I wouldn't. There would be a lot less stupid things I had to say.
Right.
So,
well, but your thing, we are so opposite. Your thing is to promise, to force you to deliver.
Exactly.
My thing is to under-promise and look amazing when I over-deliver.
That is so true. I can't think of anything that we're not the opposite on. So,
Nope.
all right. So last thing is, don't forget to check out the website. That is lightwork4lightworkers.com. That's the same name as the website and the Facebook group, and of course the YouTube channel. And this has been Dark Light Stories, and we will see you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.